because somebody has resigned. And I think that's what caused the whole sort of ruckus.
But will it be up to Felicia to fix it?
No.
Oh, okay.
The vote is going to happen, and either people write in Katie Williams' name in that planning board slot. And Carol Lisbon was asking that you write it in and also vote for her for this associate spot, just to be sure that it all works. But it seems very complicated now.
So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So we have a quorum. I think everybody who's supposed to attend is on. Janet has a conflict, so she's not going to be present. So let me just do a roll. Nina?
Here.
Mish?
Here.
Cam?
Here.
Simone?
Here.
Kevin?
Here.
Marty?
You're muted, Marty.
I'm here.
It indicates he's here. And Sarah. Okay, so I had a few things that I wanted to go over. I hope I'm not making everybody's life more complicated than it needs to be. So the things that I want to cover are the selection of chair and vice chair for the coming year, and the process of that. Then talk some about the other responsibilities. We are responsible for naming one member to the ad hoc committee on safety at Chickering. And we need to form our own ad hoc committee to address the format, content, and production of the Blue Book. And then I want to start the process around liaison assignments for the coming year, so that for those committees, departments that have stuff happening during the summer, we have somebody who is at least paying some attention.
Woody, I might add that we also, or the committee also has to nominate somebody as for the capital budget committee, since I'm departing from it.
Yeah, so I have a proposal about that, but
okay. I just wanted to make sure that hadn't been forgotten.
Thank you. Okay, so Cam can correct me about this, but as best I can understand, there is no kind of real process for us to choose a chair and a vice chair for the coming year. In recent years, there's been a certain amount of kind of instability around the leadership of the Warrant Committee that happened in the fallout of the pandemic, and ended up with Melissa Herman stepping in and performing admirably kind of last minute. But there's no kind of standard process. And I went through the town bylaws and as best I can and kind of look through things. And there doesn't appear to be anything written down. I'm not aware of anything in any record for the Warrant Committee. So I am going to propose something, or at least start what I'd like to have as a discussion about the process. So there are a variety of things that are important. One is the timing of the selection. In particular, do we select a chair and vice chair for the coming year before the end of the fiscal year, or after the end of fiscal year when the new committee is constituted? So that's one question. We don't, as best I'm aware, and I think I'm correct about this, have any kind of written list of responsibilities for the chair, nor do we have a list of responsibilities for the vice chair. And I think it's also true that while tradition has been that the chair serves hopefully for a year or more, sometimes that has happened for less than a year. For the most part, in the last couple of years, the expectation has been a year, but there's no written expectation about that. And in other surrounding towns, the chair of the fiscal advisory committee, for example, in Sherburne, has served for going on 5 years. So I'm happy to make a proposal, or at least start the outline of a proposal. But I'm happy to hear any comments, suggestions before I do that.
I'll add one thing, just as a newbie, kind of, to the Warrant Committee. Like I would, if I had to guess, I would say that to be the chair or vice chair, you want to be at least a full year, maybe an year and a half, to really get the sense of what this is about. Like I would, this for me would be like the minimum requirement. I actually would vote for at least like 2 years. And I know it's a lot of work eventually. And then I think the best will be to discuss the responsibilities for each role, because I think we as a group can help more the chair and the vice chair. But we have to make it clear what are the roles and responsibilities, or some sort of expectations for that matter. I just feel like, you know, going through this in 1 year, it just doesn't give enough opportunity to see what it takes to like play the role, but also come with suggestions of, okay, like, you know, now I can change this and see some of the things being implemented. And kind of like, you know, like I feel like the first year is like the growing pains, and then it's the moment where you're gonna actually enjoy it, if possible.
Enjoy may
No
not be the
pressure.
term I choose. Other comments?
I think it's probably helpful to have, it seems like to have the chair serve more than 1 year. I mean, if they can stand it, I mean, because there seems like such, as with being on the committee in general, there's such a big learning curve to it that it would be a shame to lose that, you know, the institutional knowledge of it.
And maybe there is like, I always appreciated I think the American Cardiology Association and the Diabetes Association, they have this thing where you have a chair and a future chair nominated. So you don't lose much on the transition. It's not like super painful. And they still have the, you know, the vice chair. But they also work with the mindset of there's someone that will come and take the leadership. And we all know this. So let's help to make an easy transition to that. And maybe it's something to consider, like you don't have to do throughout the whole year, but maybe the last 6 months, then, you know, the future chair start kind of like getting engaged and see what does it take and something like this. I just feel like that we can help more and make it less painful.
Yeah.
Perhaps I could make a comment, given that I have had the experience of being chair. I think historically, it's been quite usual for the chair to serve multiple terms as the chair. And COVID sort of disrupted that, and Melissa Herman came in on a one-off basis. She said I'd do it for a year, but no more than that. And then
We nearly did her in too.
yeah. And so I took over from Melissa, and I felt that the first year was a really steep learning curve. And it took, it was a lot of effort to sort of understand how all the pieces fit together and what processes we had to follow and all the various roles. Fortunately, we had Peter Smith at that time, who had a great deal of experience and could advise us on what is the normal process. But I only served for 1 year, not because I didn't want to continue. I thought, in fact, the second year would have been a lot easier, and I would have been able to sort of intuit a lot more what to do and be able to focus on bigger issues than what the process is. The only reason I didn't do it was because I think it would have been unfair on the successor chairman to find themselves as taking over the chair without anybody with experience doing the job. And so I felt it was important for me to step back and let somebody else take over that role, and I could advise and help that person. So I think that's really why we've got into this process of the last couple of years of only having a one-term chairman. But I would really strongly recommend that you consider try to make that a multi-year appointment in essence. But hey, I don't have any say in the committee now. This is my last committee meeting, so.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, to consider when people's terms are ending, so that a chair doesn't end their term at the same year that they stop being chair, because the
Exactly.
next
That's
person
it.
doesn't. That's a really good point. There should be a sort of an emeritus year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just blurt out a bunch of ideas that I have had, and then I think we need to kind of think about what the process is to codify things. So uh, I agreed with Simone. I thought for the vice chair, you shouldn't be able to be a candidate to be vice chair until after you've served a year on the committee. For the chair, I think you should have served 2 years before you become the chair. The chair can therefore serve up to 4 years, although based on what Cam just suggested, that would be 3 years because uh, most people serve two consecutive 3-year terms on the Warrant Committee, total of 6 years. If you don't become chair for 2 years and you want a year at the end for transition purposes, that would mean the chair could serve for 3 years consecutively. For the vice chair, I don't think there's the same problem. What I also think, although it's been historically common, I don't think it should be assumed that the vice chair necessarily becomes the chair. He or she should have to decide that that's what they want to do and should announce themselves as a candidate for the chairmanship rather than just assuming that the vice chair becomes the chair. I would propose that we have competitive elections for the chair and the vice chair each year, and that people who meet that single eligibility requirement of 2 years for the chair, 1 year of service for the vice chair, can self-nominate. And I thought it should be a secret ballot that uh, the logistics of that may be a little challenging, but I thought since Cam's rising to the Board of Selectmen, our liaison to the select board could be the person who manages the election, or we could somehow forward ballots to Felicia and she could count them, something like that. I listed a number of things as responsibilities to the chair. Chair would serve on the Capital Budget Committee, is responsible for scheduling Warrant Committee meetings and setting agendas, is responsible for orienting of new members, prepares the Warrant Committee portion of the town report, serves as the liaison to the town administrator, schedules presentations of department and committee heads to the Warrant Committee, assigns committee liaison responsibilities for the Warrant Committee members, assigns articles in the Blue Book for synopsis writing, coordinates preparation of the Blue Book, and presents the Warrant Committee report to the town meeting. I was a little less confident about delineating responsibilities for the vice chair. So what I came up with is fill in for the chair when he or she's unavailable, serve as the second Warrant Committee rep on the Capital Budget Committee, coordinate the annual election of the chair and vice chair, so solicit nominations and kind of schedule things. Coordinate the Warrant Committee resource and education efforts, so set up whatever talks or discussions we want to have as members to further our own education. Assist with Blue Book preparation and serve as the liaison to the town communication staff. And I would propose that the election of the new leadership occur in the closing year rather than occur after the beginning of the next fiscal year, because so frequently we are in a transition period with new members. We either don't have a full complement of members when July 1st comes around, but also the outgoing members have a history with the candidates and presumably have some better perspective on who would make a good chair and a good vice chair, more so than new committee members who really have had no contact. So those are the things that I came up with. Open to any discussion.
I would say that the only thing that I would suggest to consider is, if we get, for example, someone new to town, but who had served in other warrant committees in different towns, I don't think that you would need to, play the chair role. Maybe you can actually have like a, early candidate instead of serving 2 years to then become a chair. So as long as it's someone like we get a new member, the person comes with a lot of experience, I think that we might want to leverage the experience also, either for a chair or vice chair.
Other thoughts?
Woody, I just wanted to clarify, are you suggesting that we should potentially select the chair and the vice chair before the end of the fiscal year or after the new committee is seated? For instance, today, Janet could have been present. She had a conflict. Her term officially ends it expires at the end of this season.
Yeah, June 30.
Are there advantages to completing the process in June to allow leadership to be in place for summer work? Or would it be appropriate to wait until the new committee is formally constituted?
My own personal bias is that it would make sense to have people in place on July 1. And the reason for that is that I do think this year, for example, we've got a special town meeting happening in September. And there may be other things going on. There may be a second special town meeting addressing the rail trail. And we as a committee are going to have some responsibility to take stances on the issues that come up like that. So I think, and I think there's a value to identifying liaison responsibilities for the members earlier rather than later in the process. But I can understand why or the rationale behind doing it later. It just feels to me as though the advantages outweigh the disadvantages of doing it before the end of the outgoing members' terms.
Thank you.
Other comments, suggestions?
I would agree that you have to have people around who've at least rotated through on a year, because I know for myself anyway, I was so clueless. I would have really no idea how the chair should, what his or her role really was in the fullest sense, and the same with the vice chair. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have the chair in place before the end of the fiscal year.
It's a great list of chair responsibilities, and some of it I didn't even know. I mean, I wasn't aware. I mean, it's quite a list. And I think having the vice chair or somehow having someone else manage some of the the informational sessions and things like that makes sense. And I'm wondering if there's some other items on that list that could be sort of sourced out to like a point person on the committee. So there could be like, would it make sense to have like like a subgroup that worked on the blue book that was sort of, it was there so that chair was overseeing it but not doing all the work on it. Or also I was thinking like orientation of new members. That's something that you could, that could be done by someone who's been on the committee even just a year if they knew it, and that's something that the chair could be overseeing but not have to actually do. And it might be a way of sort of getting all of us members to have sort of a responsibility that we're seeing through in addition to our liaison responsibilities, but that might be.
I like that. So make some of these things duties of either the vice chair or of members.
Yeah.
And share them that way with the chair simply paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah, so we could have a subgroup that's working on the blue book all year that's just meeting, just trying to just work on that, or again, orientation. There's things. So there's a point person for new members. And it doesn't have to be you that answers every question, what I mean? Or that, just trying to share some of these responsibilities.
Other comments, suggestions, questions? Volunteers.
All I know is I think Simone and I'll speak for you, Simone, would like to get out of from meeting minutes. Maybe we can assign those to the newcomers.
Oh.
Well, and with the AI, it's not so bad, right? It's something.
It's not.
Yeah.
All right.
It's super easy to do that. And I must say that I learned a lot just reviewing the minutes. Like sometimes you get, a lot into the meeting and forget a thing or another. So most of the time, when I was doing that, I would compare like the minutes generated by AI with the closed caption to make sure that we were not missing something important, because AI misses points. So that is a good way to learn also about what really happens. I actually think that the reason that I ended up on the Warrant committee was because I asked to learn about the town meeting, and I wonder if we also could have some sort of, and I don't know if it would be a similar meeting that we offered, to talk with public in general about what Warrant committee is about, but also the importance of town meeting. I think I think we had more people this year on the town meeting than we had last year. That was my impression. I think it was at least, if I remember correctly, like last year we had like around 180 people at the top. And this year we had at least, I think, 230 at one point. So I think it's a very good turnout, but I think we need to keep people motivated to participate. It's such a, an important process. And I still think that people don't know what really happens in town. And I think we are in a unique position to talk about this and to try to recruit new members or, more attendance to the meetings that we have. So I think that if we can organize something like we did last year when there were like a bunch of people from different committees who volunteered to educate me about the town meeting and the different committees, instead of just relying the word of mouth or the neighborhood and so on. I think that we might be able to find really good people interested in participating.
I do think this is actually a priority of the select board and is why a position has been created as a communication person in the town administration. So it does seem as though that's someone we could interact with over the next year to kind of
Yeah, I agree with
speaking
that,
to our own
Woody.
issues around this. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, and I like the comments of Simone. It was true that we had significantly more people attending town meeting this year than last year. I mean, we had to wait until a quorum was established quite a long time, and people had to call around to get their friends to come so we could have a quorum. And I think that's really rather sad in a town with a population of 6,900 people. We only get 220 people at a town meeting, even on a good night. And I think we really need to work on that. To some degree, I suppose the residents are fairly happy with what goes on because otherwise they'd be out there with pitchforks. But I just think that we have a responsibility to try and get more participation across the town.
Yeah, I met someone today from Needham, and she's very involved with things there. And I thought that was very interesting to hear from her. Needham is different than Dover, so that they have the representatives by the districts and whatever. But she was saying, it's becoming very difficult for people to know the district representatives. And she was saying like how everything changes when you know who you need to talk with, like who's representing you. And Dover is different, but maybe people want something different to happen, and it's not happening because they also don't know who they have to talk with. I certainly learned more about everything in this town in this last year than I learned in the my first 6 years here. Like, I had absolutely no clue how I actually was very afraid of Dover, honestly. Like I mentioned this before, and I continue to repeat, it's not very welcoming if you don't know school people, for example, right? And unfortunately, people are staying longer, or we may see more people staying longer where they are because of the current housing situation, and we may see kids staying longer with parents because of housing situation, and then it's a different game here that we will be playing.
I echo Simone's points in that I agree we should be assigning liaison assignments for the summer months in the coming year. Beginning that process now helps us to align committees with departments to work over the summer, having that point of contact and allowing us to maintain said momentum that Simone is referring to. A lot of folks then don't know who their liaison is, who their representatives that they can ask questions for, and to stay informed without that disruption as we head into the warrant season. I also echo Mish's points about the ad hoc committee for the Blue Book review. I know that we all get to that part of the year and everyone has time management commitments, and then we have this Blue Book that the onus is on us to execute. I like the idea of a small working group to address the format, the content, the production of the Blue Book, so that then we're not relying on Woody, the last 8 meetings in a row, and maybe ascertain how many members would be ideal for that, who might have the capacity during the summer months. Just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Just curious, has town meeting ever happened on Saturdays? Would that maybe give us greater potential for attendance to increase, or?
I think it did at least once during COVID, but I don't think it's otherwise been a practice to meet on Saturday.
Because I mean, in terms of skewing the population, I'm sure that we don't get a lot of younger families because it's a school night.
Yes.
And it would be so would probably have a knock-on effect to get more young families involved. If they could come on Saturday, they might then get involved in other aspects of the town.
That COVID meeting was really well attended.
I
Parks and
remember
Rec
that.
collaborated with another group. I forget, it might have been Dover Mothers Association, and they offered childcare. And that's really incentivized a lot of young families to be in attendance, my kids included. And we were outside. I don't think the weather was great, but I think we had shades over our seats, and yeah, it was nice.
And
Yeah, I
now we
remember
have the
that.
community center, so people, like, even if the weather is not good, actually we can host kids in the community center for that matter.
Well, the select, I know this, I directed someone over the weekend who had a issue with the town government. And I said, well, select board has open hours. And so it's like, you can certainly talk to them. And I was like, you should, that's why they're there. And I mean, we could do something similar, I guess. I mean, if we want, maybe I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure I understand the different, like what our mandate is, in terms of education and how it's different, how we complement the select board, how we're different, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you one example, Mish. For me, in the very beginning, and I'm not sure if you were in that meeting, like when I realized that the budget doesn't exist until after you vote for, it blew me, it blew my mind. Like I was like, what? I spent my entire life with a target towards a budget, and then suddenly it's like, no, you vote and then you find the money to cover for that. And I think that these are things that we as the Warrant Committee can explain people and make them more like, it's awareness of the whole process that, you may not have had the opportunity to participate. I always thought that politics would be very annoying and that you wouldn't be able to talk with anyone or make the difference. But here we are, right? More than ever, it needs to make the difference.
Okay, so is there no more discussion about the election process? What I'll do is send around what I just kind of spoke, and we can solicit additional comments, and then maybe next week agree about what the process is going to be, and start to move towards actually having a selection for a chair and a vice chair for this coming year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So the other things that I wanted to address were I am still believing that the Board of Selectmen will create an ad hoc committee to address the safety issue at Chickering. And Robin has indicated that she thinks there should be a representative from the Warrant Committee. I don't know if people have thought about this, if someone has particular interest. What I guess I would say is that if you are interested, why don't you email me and express the interest? If there's no one, we'll have to kind of see if we can solicit someone, give some inducements to doing it. If there are two people, we can either have a vote or just let them kind of work it out between themselves. But hopefully we have one person who's interested in serving in this capacity.
What is the safety issue? I'm sorry, I'm not aware.
This is the sidewalk repercussions.
Oh, the sidewalk. Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the school itself. Okay, great.
No. Sorry, I was unclear about that. But
No,
yeah,
I'd rather have it be a sidewalk than the school, so good.
Yeah.
But it's more comprehensive though, right? Like, aren't they they're looking like at a
Well, it's the
totality.
fallout from the sidewalk, but exactly.
Yeah.
I think the idea is to have the police chief, the Kevin
DPW, yep.
DPW, someone from the school, someone from the community, someone from the warrant committee, someone from the select board, all sitting down, trying to
And
come
the planning committee. Yes.
with some kind of creative solutions that address the concerns that have come out, which are a lot more varied than just what Rick wrote about in his petition. All right, so that's one thing, and then I think we all agree that having some ad hoc committee of the warrant committee address the blue book makes sense. So again, I think what would probably be the best way for this to happen is for people to send me an email if they're interested, and it would be nice to get the ball rolling before the summer really starts, because it is amazing how this comes up on you, how quickly things come up. I feel like we're in a better position now as a committee, because we're a lot more aware of what the pace and what the timeline is. But I think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to accomplish all this before the next town meeting. I think we'll get as far as we can get, but it may be a 2 or even a 3 or 4 year process before we actually get to where we want to get. And you know, we're some of our ability to change the timeline is constrained by what the town administration is capable of. So it, I would certainly love to see the town administration at least move things up a week or two, so that we're not actually changing wording of articles kind of in the last day or two before the town meeting. But it does feel like we can, there are a lot of kind of easy changes that we can make that would make the process less complicated, less demanding, and also more effective. I will say that I think reading over the Blue Book, I was pretty happy with the way our own synopses of the different articles turned out, and how our guidance for voting turned out. I think that all was I think for people who read that, and I suspect the number of people who read our recommendations is probably significantly fewer than the number of people who attended town meeting. But for people who read them, I think we did a pretty good service.
I do have one comment
Yeah.
on not that I think I was just curious, does it make sense to include the actual vote total in each? So for the 2 that had, where it was 6-2 or 5-1 or just to indicate that there was some discussion or diversity of thought on the issues.
Yeah, I don't object to that. I think we could decide as a group how we want to manage that. I think in the past we have done it both ways, right, Cam? We've sometimes.
Yes, we have. I remember it happened one year when I was chairman. It happened, and we did publish the vote numbers. Or was it the year before? I can't remember now exactly which year it was, where we did post the numbers, and I got a bit of pushback from other people in the town saying that hasn't been the tradition of the Warrant Committee, and that you really need to come up with a clear recommendation to town meeting, and part of that process may involve some people dissenting, but you don't need to publish that. I don't have a stronger feeling either way, but that was the feedback I got at the time.
So I think we can certainly discuss it as a committee,
Yeah,
and decide how.
I wonder why. That's kind of interesting to me. I don't know. the Supreme Court, they published the 5-4, the 9-0.
I hardly think we're analogous to the Supreme Court.
Oh, we're up there. We're up there.
I mean, you could
Yeah.
do something if you want, we could, I mean, I know this isn't the time for brainstorming this, but we could say something like, note the ones where we're unanimous and just say like the warrant committee was unanimous, and then just otherwise just leave it as a recommendation or not recommendation.
Yeah, I feel like it
if I
almost
recall
gives
correctly,
permission for people to vote differently rather than, like just not necessarily follow what the warrant committee recommends. If you say that, to your point, Kevin, like, there were 5 and 4s on the Supreme Court. So I think it's a good democratic kind of approach.
Yes, and I remember actually, Simona, you've jotted my memory. At one point, and that was about 4 years ago, I think there were dissenting opinions put in the synopses as well.
yes.
So where we had a majority viewpoint and a minority viewpoint.
It also builds trust in the process by showing that our deliberations are thoughtful and transparent and accountable to the voters, not made behind closed doors. I think it's important for the community to see not just the articles themselves, but the rationale and the positions taken by our fiscal oversight as a committee, and that, our duty is a public body advising on the allocation of taxpayer funds and town policies. So our recommendations directly sort of have to influence the decisions made at town meeting. So transparency is necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah, I concur. That's the way I feel too.
Okay, so the last thing I just want to remind people is that we're getting, as you know, we're getting towards the end of the fiscal year. If a department has overspent their budget, they have the ability to request a transfer from the reserve fund. There's $250,000 set aside in the budget each of the last several years as a reserve fund to cover shortfalls like that. Those when a department draws from the reserve fund, it has to be approved both by the select board and by the warrant committee. So it is, I've only been on the warrant committee for a couple of years like this, but each of those years there were several requests for monies from the reserve fund. We overspent our own budget this year. The printing, our budget was $9,600 for the printing, and I think it came in at 11,100. So I'm not exactly sure if we're going to have to draw from the reserve fund, request a coverage from the reserve fund or not. But some of the departments need more money than that. So just be aware that we may have a meeting or two in which we go through several such requests and vote on. Usually we get pretty good documentation of what the issue is, why the shortfall occurs, and what the request is for in terms of coverage. So next steps. I will send out an email kind of summarizing my suggested responsibilities and the process for choosing a chair and vice chair for next fiscal year. Think about whether you want to make yourself a candidate for either of those positions. Also think if you are interested in serving on the ad hoc committee regarding Chickering and on our ad hoc committee regarding the Blue Book. I would hope that we have at least 3 or 4 people working on the Blue Book through the summer. That is not to say a full-time job, obviously, but at least spending some time thinking about how it should work and what the what some of the changes are. And I would suggest that everybody actually look at the Blue Book again, read through it again, and see what you think works and doesn't work. In particular, I think the reports of the Warrant Committee and the report of the Capital Budget Committee could do with a little work. And certainly our use of figures and tables is, I would say, almost random the last year or two. We could certainly do a better job of using figures and tables to tell a story about the budget. So I'll send out something. You all think about things, indicate your interest, and also I'm happy to entertain requests, suggestions around liaison responsibilities for this coming year. Understanding that everything has to be covered. I would say I got several comments about how much better the process was with the liaisons this year. The school committees were particularly kind of happy that there was a much better communication than in the past. But I think several of the other committees, departments were also pleased. So definitely something we did a good job on it, and should continue the making an effort in the future, because it does seem to improve the ultimate product in the way of a budget and in terms of the warrant.
I actually have a request.
Yeah.
Last year when we started the whole process, we had that presentation about like from the HR point of view, and there was like at least I had the expectations that we would be able to really see the overall structure of the town, to understand better like how organized we are. And I never saw the updated document that they said that they would share with us. I am still very interested, particularly because I feel like that my experience so far was that everything that we want to do would come with the same message. Oh no, Chris will do this. And as I mentioned before, I don't think that one person can run the whole show. And we didn't have the presentations about the communication project that he promised that it would happen. I wouldn't see things happening, like the opportunities to use the newsletter, to talk about what the Warrant Committee was doing, things that could contribute to a better understanding for the community in Dover. So I don't know if we can invite the new person, the HR person that we ended up selecting. I haven't had a chance to meet her, but I think it would be very educative, or for the lack of better word, like understanding the dynamics on how things work. Because for me, and I had a chance to get involved with in two aspects of that, right? So I was trying to get Chris to present the communication plan, and then also Parks and Recs has historically less open to be involved with us. And I think it would be very helpful for people who want to participate in the Warrant Committee to really understand what can we do to make things better, right? Like, I'm completely fine if tomorrow everybody comes and said, Simone, the only thing that you're going to do here is to wait until the numbers come, discuss with the committee, make the recommendation, and wash your hands, right? Nothing else. But I always had the feeling that we could add value to the discussions. It's just that it was always like doors. I felt like that doors were shut in front of us as we try to offer opportunities for improvement, or even to think out of the box on certain things that we do here in town. So and maybe in the summary of all that I'm saying is, what are the expectations for the members of the Warrant Committee? Because honestly, as a liaison, I have no incentive to go back to Parks and Recs to have the conversation that we had last year. I don't know if Marty agree with us, but it's really like it just doesn't add anything that we can change. And if there's no possibility of changing, then what is the point of going there?
Simona, just on your point on town structure, there is a document on the website, and I'll put a link to
Oh no,
it.
yes, I have the
Oh,
structure.
okay.
I have, but I like you know, who is behind the structure so we can actually reach out to people and know exactly what is happening. So that's what I thought that we would get. And
Okay. But I also find it instructive that structural document was last modified in 2010. So I suspect there's a lot of changes that have happened in the meantime.
All right. I mean, I certainly agree that more conversation about what the role of the liaison is and how he or she should be interacting with the department committee, what leadership of makes sense. We certainly did better in some areas than in others, and had a much more receptive kind of relationship in some areas than in others. So that's something that we should probably also be discussing in terms of who ends up with Parks and Rec next year. Just what you and Marty could talk about if you don't do it, what your experience was and what you found worked and didn't work.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, so I am going to schedule a meeting for next week, which I hope will be brief. And I hope that a lot of what we need to accomplish, we can accomplish in the email communication. I have thought of two kind of topics that would be potentially useful to have presentations on. One is municipal debt, which I don't really feel like I understand. Another is the open meeting law, which I also don't feel like I understand, but constrains a lot of our communication and certainly limits what we can do by email. So I thought both of those might be things we could schedule presentations on sometime either this spring or fall. If there is nothing else, I would be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone second?
second,
Marty.
Second.
Nina?
Yes.
Nish?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Simone?
yes.
Cam?
Yes, this
Oh,
is my last hurrah.
swan songs, Cam. You didn't say that with any emotion. I think you only relief. Sarah
Yes.
and Marty.
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, great. So I'll send out the email in the next day or so, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Woody. Yeah, that's
Bye, guys.
great. All right.
Bye.
Thank you.